The following story and photos are from GiantPandaKing's book, Gotham 1919 to 1939, by Russell S. Beatty, available from www.giantpandaking.com. Viewer discretion is advised.
When I promised my parents at their graves that I would bring justice to Gotham, I had no idea what that would entail. The price I would have to pay.
A person who grew up in a place like Gotham would most likely be able to tell you all there is to know about the city. Its ups, its downs, the good and the bad. Thomas Elliot Jr. was no exception to this. One might even say he had an extensive history with Gotham City. His impact would leave a dark scar on Gotham for years. The Elliots had been founding members of Gotham alongside the Waynes and the Cobblepots. Thomas's family was particularly close to the Wayne family as he was growing up. The Elliots were also distant relatives of the Waynes, and both Thomas Elliot Sr. and Thomas Wayne had been named after the same family friend. Bruce Wayne and Thomas Elliot were friends growing up. Their parents ran in the same social circles, so it only made sense that the two young boys would be friends. In spite of the outward appearance that the Elliots were wealthy, they actually held a dark secret. Even though they came from old money, their investments had actually dried up a long time ago. Any money they did have left, they spent trying to keep up appearances and continue their facade. They continued attending functions, appearing in the public eye, and wearing fashionable clothes, but in reality they were broke. This made life in the Elliot home very tense, fraught with worry, irritability, and oftentimes anger. None of this was helped by the fact that Thomas Elliot Sr. was a gambler. He was driven by compulsion and would frivolously waste away even more of their money. Thomas Elliot Jr. resented his father and saw him as responsible for their continued plight. In spite of his resentment towards his father, one of the few things Thomas Elliot Jr. did inherit from his father was a gambling habit. Thomas continued to rack up even more debt on top of his father's existing tally. Thomas did not see it as an addiction, however. In his mind, his father was just a loser, and he himself was a true gambler. In reality, he had become like his father. Even though this dark cloud loomed over him, Thomas was a very brilliant-minded young man. He worked extremely hard and proved his ambition. He earned a scholarship to college and eventually went on to enter medical school as well. With this education came a need for capital to pay his tuition. Thomas turned even harder to gambling to make his way. After watching his father lose so often, Thomas devised a plan. Rather than leave his fate to chance, he would do whatever he needed to win. First, he started off small. He used a loaded deck of cards for years to ensure he would win big. This helped him make it all the way through medical school. He went to a different school than Bruce, but the two remained in touch. Once Thomas had become a licensed surgeon, he became even bolder. He went as far as poisoning a fan-favorite racehorse to make sure it would drag its feet and lose the race. As time went on, and as Thomas became more experienced in his deception, he escalated even more. He wrapped his head in bandages to hide his identity. He then kidnapped a prize-fighter's wife and blackmailed him into taking a dive in the fight. Thomas's career as a doctor advanced, and he became one of the top doctors in Gotham. As his legitimate career advanced, so did his greed. Thomas found himself wanting more and more, not just the excitement of winning, but the thrill of the gamble. He finally escalated to murdering the parents of a professional baseball player, causing the player to miss the World Series and his team, the Gotham Knights, to lose. Nothing was beyond Thomas now. He would continue doing these things while keeping his involvement with them quiet. He would remain below the Batman's radar even as the vigilante first appeared in Gotham. Dr. Thomas Elliot remained a widely accepted public figure in Gotham, but kept his grim extracurricular activities hush-hush. Thomas became a sort of boogeyman in Gotham's criminal underworld. Street-level thugs would refer to him as Hush. He had kept his identity hidden by continuing to wear bandages covering his face, as well as a thick trench coat for protection. He formed connections to organized crime and quickly took over the operations of most gambling rings in Gotham. As Hush, he made a name for himself, almost as widely known as the Batman, but feared even more. Criminals would be even more scared to mention Hush's name lest they incur his wrath. This is why the Bat did not find out about him for a while. Thomas remained a confident and upstanding member of society with his well-respected name and reputation as a surgeon. Dr. Thomas Elliot paralleled Bruce Wayne and the Batman. They both were upstanding citizens of Gotham, and they both had a masked alter ego. In all of his criminal enterprises, it became glaringly evident to Thomas. With the Batman's sudden appearance, so too came Bruce Wayne's triumphant return to Gotham. Thomas and Bruce rekindled their friendship, with Thomas noting the similarities between them. After enough digging, it became clear to Thomas that Bruce was in fact the Batman. As Hush, Thomas had seen the Bat dismantle some of Hush's own work. This put them at odds with each other. Hush decided that in order to keep his operation running, he needed to dismantle the Bats. Using his knowledge of the Batman's identity, he used psychological tactics to throw him off. He left a photo of Thomas and Martha Wayne at one of his crime scenes, a letter between Bruce and his college sweetheart, Andrea, at another. Hush took cruel delight in seeing the Batman's startled reactions to these things. The Batman was filled with a torrent of emotions seeing these things: fear, confusion, rage. The Bat set out to discover who was behind this. Much of the ensuing conflict between Hush and the Batman remains lost to time, but what is known is that Hush was one of the Bat's most harrowing enemies. It truly pushed him to his limit to defeat the masked villain, and both the vigilante and the city were shocked to discover the truth behind the wrappings. Dr. Thomas Elliot was the mastermind behind it all. It was a further blow to the Bat, yet another betrayal of his trust. Bruce and Thomas had been friends as children, and even as adults, for years. Bruce had his Bat team to rely on, but he had seen so many friends turn already. Harvey Dent had become Two-Face, Andrea had become the Phantasm, Silver St. Cloud had been in league with the Court of Owls. As Bruce approached the latter years of his time as the Batman, he began to become more paranoid. He was more wary of everyone, his allies included. He did not disband the Bat team, but he began to go on more solo patrols and missions, allowing his allies to operate autonomously. They all worried for Bruce, but they let him have this time to himself. Perhaps they should have supported him more, or perhaps that was what he needed. We may never know. Regardless of this, the time was fast approaching. The end of the Batman was drawing nearer and nearer, and Gotham would never be the same.